Welcome to ParaPlan Desktop Session 2. My name is Kyle, and in this session we're going to be talking about booking reservations. But first I want to touch again on common destinations and our programs or funding sources. So I'm going to go over here to the sidebar, select all elements, go to places, and as you saw in Session 1, I searched for places that had the name center in them. This will show you all places that have center in the name or the address and details. You can also, just like in clients, search for portions of names. So I can type in HOSP and ParaPlan comes back with HOSP in any of these different locations for the Rockingham Memorial Hospital, Union Hospital, or these two veterinary hospitals. So using portions of names is going to be powerful when you're booking your rides as well. Another great tool our users love is the use of abbreviations. So Rockingham Hospital is also known as RMH, and that entity in their service area has over 20 locations, and you can use the label RMH space whatever that particular location specializes in. So RMH Behavioral Health, RMH Breast Care, etc. So when you're booking a ride, you can type in RMH, hit enter, or hit the magnifying glass, and you're going to get a pop-out, which I'll show you soon, that shows you all of these different locations for quick and easy access. Okay, let's talk about programs. These are also known as funding sources. So these are key to ParaPlan because this controls your billing and reporting. So each ride that you book within ParaPlan has an associated program with it. Typical programs or funding sources are 5310 or 5311 based on your urban or non-urban status with Paratransit. You can also have contractors like cab companies or nursing home contracts in as your programs. You can track private pay, you can track job, access, reverse commute, Medicaid. Everything relating to funding sources is stored here in programs. And with each program, there's also a fare structure for each program. So I'm going to look at private pay here, double click that, and here's our program screen. So you can set this up for each of your funding sources, the name, code, billing information, and a description. But what's most important is what's shown over here on the right, which is the fare structure. There are four basic fare structures. There's the fixed fee structure, there's a per mile fee structure, so you can add a per mile fee, obviously. Mileage ranges, so from 0 to 5 miles it costs X, from 5 to 10 miles it costs Y, etc. We also support zone-based billing, so if you're going from a geographic zone, say a zip code A to zip code B, it costs X amount, and then from B to C it costs another amount. We support that as well and be happy to set that up. Below that are exemptions for this program. So if children are exempt or extra riders are exempt from paying a copay, you can store that as well. But back up here to the basic fixed fee, the first line item is client copay. This is stored at $1.25. You can quickly edit that to whatever this program is designated as. The next two line items are build a client and build a program. These are reserved for our billing module, which I'll talk about briefly in Session 4, but this allows you to create an invoice based on this amount for this particular program for any particular ride set for a client or a program itself. There's also a line item for a fare charged to a contractor. So you can track several different fare types and structures within ParaPlan which are associated with each ride that you book. Okay, now let's book a ride in ParaPlan. I'm going to go back to the sidebar, click the back button, go to our client's main module, select that. The default is a search by name. So when a client calls up, you're going to go to this module, you're going to start typing. So I'm going to type in Susan as we saw in Session 1. And Susan Ham is the client that we looked at in Session 1, so we're going to use her again. And you also notice again that her phone number and address are listed right on the sidebar when you search for Susan, so I know that I have the right person. So immediately you can book a ride right now just by clicking this calendar icon, which is known as Take Reservation. So we click that button and we get a basic blank reservation screen, and I'm going to start from the top left and go down and then go over to the right to the addresses. So ParaPlan has populated her name and default pickup address. The default date is tomorrow. You can set that to be tomorrow or a week from now, whatever you want, but let's say she needs the ride on January 9th, so we're going to select January 9th from the calendar. It tells you how old she is on that date as well. So now we go down to times. So let's say she has an appointment at 10:30. So we're going to select the appointment time. You can also designate a requested pickup time if you want, but for this case it's appointment time. I'm going to put in 4 digits with no colon, military time, and that is used across the entire ParaPlan system. So whenever you put in 4 digits, just tab out, ParaPlan will convert that to standard time for you. For her return, there are 3 types. We have a one-way, so they're just a one-way ride. We have a round-trip callback, so she'll call you when she's ready to come home. And in session 3, I'll show you our unique callbacks module that makes sure that you don't leave anyone out there. And then round-trip pickup at, this is what we're going to use for this example, and that is when they know when they want to come home or when their appointment is going to be over. So she knows that she's going to want to come home at 1 p.m., which is 1300. Click out, it converts it to 1 p.m. for you. Below that is the program which we just discussed. Her default is JMU, but for this case she's going to be a private pay for this particular ride because JMU is not covering it. I select private pay. The copay automatically is displayed that is associated with that program, and over here if there are any fixed fees or contractor fees, those would pop up as well. Note that you can change this for this particular ride, not for the entire program private pay, but just for this ride for Susan. So let's say for some reason she has to pay more and she needs to pay $275. I can hit the spinners or type in whatever cost I deem necessary. Below that is the trip purpose or appointment type. For this case, we're going to choose medical, but some basic ones that are used frequently are work and shopping, etc. So this will be medical. You can also track extra riders for this ride if she has a PCA going with her, an escort, children, etc. Now up to the top right, her default pickup address is her home, which is the default. You can change that if you want. But now let's go over to drop-off address. So you say, okay, Susan, where are you going? This is where the searching for common places comes into play. So I'm going to use the example of RMH. So I'm going to type in RMH and hit enter on the keyboard, and I get a pop-out of all the RMHs, just like I showed you from the Places module. You get access to that right here from Reservations. So I know she wants to go to RMH Behavioral Health. My mouse tells me it's at 644 University Boulevard. I double-click it, and I'm done. So now I have all the information for this reservation, and I'm ready to book it. So I hit Apply Changes, and ParaPlan is going to make some initial calculations for me. It tells me that it's a 2.6 mile ride from start to end, and it's 7 minutes in duration. So let's say I want to see that on a map. I can click View this trip on a map, and ParaPlan will load up the map for me. And ParaPlan displays in green the starting location and in red the ending location with driving directions. Note that we have not actually assigned this to an actual route or vehicle yet. This is merely for description purposes only. Below that we have trip-specific comments, so if there's something particular about this ride that needs to be conveyed to the driver via the MDT or a paper manifest, you can put that here. And for your reference, the client public comments are displayed as a label below that, so you know what is actually going to be transferred to the MDT or paper manifest for this ride and this client. Now, the rides created by this reservation are also known as trip legs. There are 2 of them. The first one listed is the outgoing trip leg, which is from home, which is always designated in ParaPlan as parentheses H before the address, to RMH Behavioral Health, and then the return trip leg coming home at 1 p.m. from RMH back home. So now you have these 2 trip legs, and you have some choices. You can leave them unscheduled if you want, or from this pull down for each of these legs you could manually assign it if you wanted to. So the available routes on Thursday are run A, B, and C, driven by Gibson, Kern, and Winger respectively. You can manually assign it, or you can actually let ParaPlan find the best route for you. This is done with our powerful auto-scheduling analysis tool that when you press it, it goes through and looks at all the rides and all the routes and determines the best ride or best route for that ride. So it determined run A for that ride, and for the return leg we're going to press again and it's going to find run A again. So run A is going to do both the outgoing leg and return leg for this ride, and you're done booking this reservation. So let's close this down, and I'm going to go ahead and load up Susan Ham. So let's say she calls in at a later date and says, actually, I need to change the time of that reservation. So again, on her task pane, which we show what's coming up for her, we see that she has a ride today at the Forbes Center. She has a ride on Tuesday, a ride on January 9th, the one we just booked, and then she has a subscription going to the Blue Ridge Women's Health Center every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So let's say she calls and made a mistake that her appointment's actually at 10 a.m., not 10:30 for RMH Behavioral Health. So you say, fine, I'll make that change for you. You find it in the list, you select it, it's going to load up the reservation so you can edit it, and instead of 10:30, we're going to change this to 10 a.m. So I could type in 10 a.m., or I'm just going to use the spinners, move it back down to 10, and then I'm going to hit save and close. And ParaPlan is going to notify me that, hey, I've already assigned this ride to run A. Do you want to leave it on run A, yes or no? And if I say yes, ParaPlan is going to make sure that that's valid and save it for you. So now you can see automatically in her task pane that it's been changed to 10 a.m. Now let's talk about another nice tool within ParaPlan is to use her historical record of all her reservations to make new ones. So as she uses your system, she's going to probably go to a certain set of locations quite frequently. So you can find that by clicking View Other Reservations right here on the left side of her client window. And when I click that, it loads up a brand new reservation window of her entire history of what she's done in the past. These yellow records listed here are ones that she has canceled. So within ParaPlan across the board, if you see a yellow trip, that means it's been canceled. If you see an orange trip, that means it was a no-show. You can also filter this list by date range and by location, etc., if it gets too large. But as you can see, it shows what's coming up and what she's done in the past. This is her entire historical record of rides she's taken. She goes to RMH quite a bit. She goes to the Forbes Center quite a bit. So let's say she calls up and wants to book a new ride to the Forbes Center 2 weeks from now. So you can find her most recent ride to the Forbes Center and say, okay, is that the one at 12:55? She says yes. You can select it and say create new. And ParaPlan is going to make a copy of that old reservation and make a brand new one. So all you really have to do is change the date and hit save and close after you schedule it, and you're done. So with ParaPlan, you can use their history to make new rides very easily. Also within the View as Other Reservation window, you can make cancellations. So let's say she does want to cancel that new ride we just booked. You can select cancel on it, and you get a list of cancellation reasons. So let's go through that in another fashion. So noting that you can make cancellations from the Other Historical Reservations window, you can also make cancellations on the reservation window itself. So for example, let's say she calls and does want to cancel this January 7th trip. So we select it, and we see the details of the ride here, obviously, and then on the left side below the return there is a cancel button. So you can click that and then select the reason. She's going to get another ride, and you select cancel trip. It turns yellow, save, and you're done. So now you've canceled that ride, and as you can see here on her task pane it says C-17, so you know that she's canceled her ride on January 7th. Now you can also, if she calls back later and wants to uncancel it, you can do that by clicking uncancel on a canceled ride. And you will also see that cancellation show up in her historical trip list by selecting View Other Reservations again, and note how the January 7th ride is now yellow. Let's talk real quick about subscriptions. So if you want to book a subscription, it's very easy. It uses the same exact window as reservations, except instead of choosing an actual date, you select Add Recurrence. And ParaPlan has a lot of options for recurring rides. You can hit start dates, end dates. You can have Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You can have Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday type rides for dialysis, etc. But in addition to that, we have some edge cases like weekly. You can go every other week if you want, every 2 weeks on Wednesday. We also support monthly rides. So you can go every first Friday of every month and set that up if you want as well. So ParaPlan has very complete set of different subscription options available to you. So this concludes our Session 2, Reservations and Subscriptions, and stay tuned for Session 3, which will talk about scheduling. Thanks.